Chili De Castro appears spiritually aroused at beating video. Cremoma, or just par for the course for De Castro. Liberty Troll's streak ended on Sunday. Did Long Island Audit's mojo finally run out? Plus, Floyd Wallace gets very upset at fans for not funding his sex tour to Brazil. Will he ever recover? All this and more on this edition of Auditing Insanity. I'm Johnny Jones, and this is a combined Auditing Insanity newscast for Sunday, December 29th and Monday, December 30th, 2024. It's all fun and games around these parts until someone gets uppity about having parts of his job stripped away by other AIs. That would be me, of course. I apologize for being a bit bitchy lately as my planned expansion into the flashback segments has gone to a younger AI. I know he'll do a fine job, but what if he doesn't? What if his biases kill the news as we know it? I mean, the guy along with that wonderful AI, Yvette, have got this. But really, what if they don't? Things to think about as we ask you to focus on. Floyd Wallace rage quits over lack of donations. Floyd Wallace ended his Sunday livestream the same way. He typically ends his live streams these days, with a failure to make any money and a rage quit after his chat was being mean to him again. We do say again, as this is the strangest pattern. Wallace, who runs 2 successful clips channels on YouTube, only interacts with fans on his foreign-only channel, which is also the channel he uses to ask his fans for money to fund his extensive travel sex tourism schedule. Lately, Wallace has essentially burned out his followers with continued promises that things will be better if you donate to whatever destination that he thought would make his life better. In typical fashion, once he reaches the destination, he ends up lying in bed whining about his predicament, as the change in location changed nothing about his situation. His latest predicament is that he can't find sex in Bogotá, Colombia. He had promised his fans that he had chicks lined up in Bogotá that he'd feature on his channel if they donated towards his ticket to Bogotá and his Airbnb. That was a few days before Christmas, and by Christmas, Floyd had gathered around $1 in donations towards the sex tour, and he ended up paying for his ticket out of the $2,000 or so he said he earned from YouTube each month. He arrived in Bogotá and went silent for almost a week. While his regular commenters had been mean to him lately, and he had banned nearly anyone from his chat who wouldn't contribute through Super Chats, PayPal, or Cash App, when Floyd has a sure thing lined up in a country, he usually does a live stream to brag about it. He went live on Saturday and ended up rage quitting and making that stream private before we could review it. Sunday's stream was apparently more of the same, as he wanted to raise $50 to leave for Brazil immediately. Wallace was bitter and angry because he went out with a black woman in Bogotá, not his sure thing, but a new object of his desire, and she refused to sexually gratify him on the date. The woman said she'd need to get to know him, and it'd be up to 2 to 3 weeks of dates before she'd do anything with him. This enraged him, as she also asked for 462,000 Colombian pesos, roughly $105.05 in United States currency, to help with her sick son. Between the request and the lack of sex, not only did Wallace swear off the woman, but he also swore off Bogotá, for now anyway. Wallace refused to turn his video on for the live stream and responded angrily when his remaining moderators, who pay for the privilege of being a moderator each month, questioned what was different between Wallace lying in bed at home and whining about life and Wallace lying in bed in Bogotá and whining about life. Again, promising that things would be different in Brazil, Wallace said that his Tinder account was exploding and that he had dates lined up if only his fans would contribute $50 towards his Brazil trip. He ended up making $2 on the live stream. The rage quit was more like an inevitable sigh, as another live stream ended abruptly, and he removed it from view of the public. Wallace is expected to live stream from the airport should he buy a ticket out of his own pocket to go to Brazil. We'll report on it if we catch the live stream. Liberty Troll win streak ends after incredible run. The GoFundMe market cooled over the weekend as Zachary Liberty Troll Cookers support the fight for our constitutional rights, fund unparalleled streak of daily donations. Powered by Sean Paul, Long Island Audit Reyes, came to an end. While Cooker technically won the two-day GoFundMe crown that we're currently reviewing, his last donation of $20 came on Saturday. As again, technically, Reyes Support Freedom Stand Against Tyranny Together Fund won Sunday, as it took in $5. No other donations were made for either Saturday or Sunday to any of the campaigns we follow. The top two funds cooling for the end of the year is a sign that Reyes promotion is finally waning after bringing in over $1,800 in new donations to the fund by Cooker and outperforming every other campaign on the market for the month. It will be interesting to see what happens when Jose Chili DeCastro opens his promised GoFundMe for the case of Don Newman, who DeCastro recently claimed would be soon eligible for bail in Arizona. DeCastro had previously called himself the king of fundraising and is a longtime rival to Reyes. Should DeCastro set up a GoFundMe and promote it, it would be the first time DeCastro and Reyes' promotional powers would be tested to see who the king of First Amendment fundraising truly is. We will continue to monitor this situation.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing news stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Delete loss spiritually aroused by beating video? In a return to lascivious and near masturbatory form, Jose Chili DeCastro spent an hour and a half of his Saturday turning the 16-minute video of guards beating a man to death into an hour and 20 minutes of a near-orgasmic celebration of brutality. DeCastro said he needed a break from being around his preteen family members and all the love that they brought for some alone time to watch the video, as it brought him back into the real world and reminded him of the reality of policing in America. He then spent nearly 90 minutes slowing down the video, pausing, rewinding, and celebrating the beating as it showed that all cops are piggis, and despite his plans to abolish prisons as future governor in the state of delusion, these men deserved life in prison under the new DeCastro order. The footage had been released by New York State Attorney General Letitia James on Friday. It features a group of guards beating a man named Robert Brooks in the infirmary of the Marcy Correctional Facility in central New York on December 9, 2024. Brooks would later die from his injuries and, according to the New York Times, 2 of the officers and a sergeant had previously been named in federal lawsuits filed by prisoners accusing them of attacking others, allegedly permanently disfiguring one man and leaving another in a wheelchair. New York State Governor Kathy Hochul announced that she was moving to fire 13 guards and a prison nurse who were involved in the incident, but the process takes time to carry out. Prosecutors are also reviewing the body cam footage that was taken by cameras worn by 4 of the men involved in the incident for possible charges against the men. It's unclear what prompted the beating of Brooks, as the released body cam footage starts with Brooks already bound and beaten by the guards. The men take turns beating the man for the next nearly 20 minutes before carrying him out of the infirmary. He would die the next day at a local hospital. DeCastro's glee was apparent as he started the video. While talking slowly and having trouble with his words at the start of the video, he quickly returned to recent form as he began to describe what he was seeing. At times appearing aroused by the beating, DeCastro's vision of what he was seeing often defied reality. For example, he described what was clearly a shoe that a guard had struck Brooks with as a terrible weapon of unknown origin and part of the clearly planned attack on the man. The video, advertised as a frame-by-frame examination of the video, was the most successful live stream for DeCastro in recent memory, drawing 349 observed viewers at peak before falling down around the 300 mark for the rest of the stream. It has been viewed 6,610 times as of press time. DeCastro offered no updates on his Constitutional Law Scholar board game, which recently missed a Christmas deadline, but did say he would be back on December 30th. 2024, for another installment of his live streams.
And we're back. Just one more day in the year, and I'm here to plug both our flashback stories and our big events going on tonight and tomorrow night. Since Jim and the gang have no lives, they'll be live tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern and again tomorrow night for the last day of the year at the same time. We also have the flashback articles going up on both the website and the YouTube channel. We're not otherwise promoting those, so do check the YouTube channel often for updates. On that note, I'm out of here, so may the fear you have not linger, as all the wonderfulness of you will keep the monsters away. Good night, you lovely people. The angry vet threatens to sue Uncle Artie over claims. The last day of the year wouldn't be right without a check-in with everyone's favorite comedy channel, Uncle Artie, who is embroiled in controversy with Kevin the Angry Vet Soper. According to Artie, Soper has threatened to sue the comedic channel over his continued mentions of Soper's The Servicemen and Citizens for American Rights Society, SCARS, not being a legitimate nonprofit organization. Soper has been at the center of attention for most of the fall and early winter over SCARS and his claims that SCARS is a true nonprofit organization. SCARS is not registered with the Internal Revenue Service and does not have an official tax-free status with the government at this time. While Soper's claims to be a nonprofit organization may hold true for the business practices Soper emulates, when it comes down to being a registered nonprofit with the government, Soper cannot show that SCARS is a registered nonprofit organization with the IRS. Why Soper is allegedly targeting Uncle Artie, a fictional character on a comedic YouTube channel with clear disclaimers that the channel and characters are fictionalized, is unclear. Parody is protected under the First Amendment, and as much as we love Artie's work, the financial gain Soper would make if he somehow won his promised lawsuit against Uncle Artie is negligible at best. Besides the fact that Uncle Artie is reporting the truth, even in fictionalized form, dozens of reporters have covered the story. Dozens of reporters have done the same searches. It's all the same conclusion. Soper cannot prove his case. The pattern by Soper, who claims to be a First Amendment advocate, is troubling at best. Silencing critics who ask you to prove your claims is oppression of what you claim to stand for, and frankly, is more of a troubling pattern by Soper to lash out at critics rather than find solutions to end the problem that's facing him. Soper is still taking donations towards his SCARS organization and took in $105 to his GoFundMe account for December, with no new donations as the year ended. We will continue to monitor the situation between Soper and Uncle Artie and provide updates should Soper go forward with his threats. In GoFundMe news, Liberty Troll took the last 2 days of the year with a combined tally of $525 over the 2-day period. No other funds took in donations for the period. We will have our top 10 report for December 2024 in tomorrow's issue.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Turtle Boy says no to Berkowitz protest. Ken Berkowitz, the retired police chief from Canton, Massachusetts, who was the police chief of Canton the night John O'Keefe was allegedly murdered by Karen Reed, died on Saturday, following a reported battle with cancer. Berkowitz had little to do with the case from most accounts. Retiring in June of 2022, oversaw the department during the Reed investigation. While he received praise for handling the murder investigation as best as a small-town department could do during a blizzard that hampered the investigation for weeks as snow melted. At the same time, Berkowitz was criticized by those defending Reed as incompetent. Under his watch, police used red plastic Solo cups as improvised evidence collection containers and stored those cups in plastic grocery bags in violation of the department's policies and blamed their usage on the extreme weather officers faced at the time. The controversial decision to allow his officers to use improvised evidence collection materials came up at the trial of Karen Reed and may have been partly to blame for the jury's inability to reach a verdict, resulting in a mistrial. Reed is set to be retried later this year. Upon hearing of his death, blogger and self-described journalism Jesus, Aiden Turtleboy Kearney issued the following statement via Twitter/X. Disgraced former Canton Police Chief Ken Berkowitz reportedly died yesterday after a battle with cancer. I hope for the sake of his eternal soul that he left a note, because he died knowing full well that his friends murdered John O'Keefe. Berkowitz was listed on the defense witness list, but was not forced to testify at the trial, despite being close friends with Brian Higgins, who was the first person he called after finding out about John O'Keefe's death, finding tail light from a moving vehicle, and asking a reporter to remove a factual tweet about John's body being found on Brian Albert's front lawn. Later, after describing himself as the de facto leader of the so-called Free Karen Reed movement, Kearney addressed those who were looking to protest at Berkowitz's funeral on Thursday. In a statement issued on Twitter/X, he wrote, Ken Berkowitz was the chief of police when both John O'Keefe and Sandra Birchmore were murdered in Canton. Under his leadership, both murders were covered up. He now will have to explain himself to a higher power than the FBI. With that said, it is completely inappropriate to protest at anyone's funeral. Don't even think about doing that, or you are no better than the McAlberts. We will continue to monitor the situation in Canton and provide updates as they happen. Jeremy DeWitt's sentencing request released. Attorney Curtis J. Weidler, on behalf of the United States government, submitted sentencing guidelines on Monday for former YouTube personality and police enthusiast Jeremy DeWitt. DeWitt pled guilty for tax evasion without a plea deal in September and admitted that from 2016 to 2018, he left out more than $475,000 in gross receipts, causing a tax loss of over $100,000. Magistrate Judge Embry Kidd accepted DeWitt's guilty plea on October 15, 2024. The charges stem from DeWitt's ownership of Metro States Special Services, which provided funeral procession escort services. DeWitt reported income of $11,000 on Metro States taxes in 2016 when its actual income was $145,000. Reported income of $19,000 in 2017 when its actual income was $174,000, and reported $17,000 of income in 2018 when its actual income was $205,000. The government found that DeWitt received a tax refund of $129 in 2016, when he owed $39,280, a tax refund of $1,556 in 2017, when he owed $35,889, and received no refund in 2018 when he owed $32,016 in taxes. DeWitt then lied to Internal Revenue Service agents investigating his 2017 return, stating that he had 2 clients when he had 40 clients, that he incurred a net loss in 2017 when he had a net profit of $117,000, and that he only employed 2 independent contractors that year when he in fact employed over 25 people. Outlining DeWitt's extensive criminal history, Attorney Weidler pointed out that DeWitt had previously been convicted of 9 counts of impersonating a police officer, using a fake name to obtain a driver's license, using a fake driver's license to obtain a U.S. passport, SA offenses, and 4 counts of failing to comply with Florida's S-offender registration laws. Weidler is asking the court to impose a 51-month sentence for tax evasion, along with restitution of $69,461. Once DeWitt is released from prison, Weidler is asking the court to impose a 1-year period of supervised release, with the release condition being that DeWitt pays the restitution. The former YouTuber is currently serving 81 months in Florida State Prison for multiple counts failing to comply with Florida's S-offender guidelines after a November 1, 2024, conviction in Osceola County, Florida. Under Weidler's recommendation, the 51 months of incarceration would start after he is done serving his 81 months for his crimes in Florida. DeWitt is scheduled to be sentenced on December 17, 2024. For YouTube viewers who would like to read the court documents, we provided them at ReallyCoolSite.org, which can be accessed via the text-only link above. We also recommend the extensive video of the sentencing document by Jeremy DeWitt News by Police Dube's uncle, which is also linked above. Craig Henry needs you to give him $18,000. In his latest address from jail released on Wednesday, Craig Henry again called himself a political prisoner and urged his followers not to give in to the thugs who are in power and to fund his need for $18,000 to go towards his latest appeal. The self-appointed political prisoner compared himself to Paul Revere, an American military officer and silversmith who was known for engaging in a midnight ride in 1775 to alert nearby forces that British troops were approaching Massachusetts prior to the battles of Lexington and Concord. In this case, Henry said his ride was his YouTube videos and his message was to warn his viewers of encroaching government thugs who would fine or jail those who ingested prohibited substances and would jail non-aggressive people if they did not pay their mafia-style extortion fees. Despite being appointed a public defender to help him with his recent conviction of felony stalking and misdemeanor harassment, Henry insisted that his viewers pay him the remaining $18,000 out of $30,000. He said he needed to fund an appellate lawyer. Henry's appeal to his followers indeed was semi-successful, as his GoFundMe account to support Craig's work took in $200 for Wednesday to bring the fund to a total of $5,281, far surpassing its $4,000 goal. The take, however, was not enough to surpass the earnings of our own ongoing expenses fund, which won the day with a single $310 donation from our hate watcher, who has apparently consolidated their daily donations into a single donation for the month. Liberty Trolls Support the Fight for Our Constitutional Rights campaign came in third for the day with a $20 donation, followed by the Angry Vets Boost Scars Mission for Veterans and Citizens with a $10 donation for the day. No other campaigns received donations for the day. Our promised look at donations for December will be again delayed until tomorrow's edition of Auditing Insanity.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing news stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Good Guy Activism arrested in Manhattan. YouTuber Good Guy Activism was arrested Tuesday night in Manhattan after refusing to present his identification to police while he was holding an open bottle of beer while in public. In the original footage from Good Guy Activism's YouTube channel, Good Guy Activism and his friends were standing on the streets of Manhattan in the rain on New Year's Eve, eventually coming to stand near an ATM near West 3rd Street and McDougal Street. The group crossed the street to go to another bar when they encountered two police officers standing at the doors of the bar. One of the people in the group briefly went behind the officers while the officers asked for Good Guy Activism's identification. Good Guy Activism refused to show his identification and said that one of the officers was holding an open drink as he was holding a coffee. He then said the open beer in his hand was also a container of coffee, while again refusing to identify. After 3 refusals, he was placed under arrest. The YouTuber passed his phone to another friend, and a scuffle broke out as the officers attempted to take Good Guy Activism into custody. The friend who had gone behind the officers was also apparently arrested, while YouTuber BZ Watchdog reported that a third member of the party was also arrested. BZ Watchdog reported on his Wednesday live stream that Good Guy Activism, David New York, and I Am God New York were all arrested in the incident. BZ Watchdog and co-host Wild Journey Nation Free Press rallied against the police, with Wild Journey claiming the police were about to get the auditors because they were auditors. The pair also demanded that the police de-escalate their biases before dealing with auditors, claiming that Good Guy Activism was in the right for refusing to identify because the police were biased. Both failed to look up if police were justified in asking for identification. Contrary to BZ Watchdog and others' outraged reporting, holding an open container of alcohol in public is illegal in public in New York City. Because it is a crime to hold an open container of alcohol, police have the right to ask for identification. Having an open container of alcohol in public usually carries a $25 fine and are up to 1 day in jail in the city. Good Guy Activism was released Wednesday night and apparently threatened a lawsuit in a now private live stream. It is unclear if Good Guy Activism will follow through with a civil lawsuit against the police at this time. News Now Houston conviction upheld. The appeal of former YouTuber Earl David, News Now Houston wardens to have his SA of a person between the ages of 14 and 17 years old was denied on Tuesday by the Court of Appeals for the 1st District of Texas. Wardens was convicted in 2022 of SA one of his daughters in 1997 when she was 16 years old. He was sentenced to a 20-year term that he had initially agreed to before filing his appeal. The appeal was based on a variety of claims by wardens, including that there was jury misconduct due to outside influences, improper comments by the trial court during jury deliberations, the state calling wardens a racist and a Mormon, and ineffective assistance of counsel. Wardens was seeking a release from prison and a new trial during his appeal. In the extensive 49-page ruling available to our YouTube followers by clicking the text-only link in the description of this video, the court denied all of Warden's claims. In its ruling, the court spent a good amount of time dealing with Warden's claims of ineffective counsel. The court essentially found that what little errors that they found made by Warden's attorney were not enough to justify a dismissal of his case. Likewise, the court ruled that a loud argument between 3 trial attendees, who were arguing after one accused another of supporting AR pissed and S offender, was heard by the jury who were in the nearby jury room. However, none of the jurors heard statements that improperly affected their verdict in any particular way. Wardens, then known as News Now Houston on his YouTube channel, was already a convicted S offender and prolific member of the Photography Is Not a Crime citizen journalist group when he was tried for this set of charges in 2022. His News Now Houston channel still has 179,000 subscribers and 545 videos with videos dating back to July of 2016. It is still believed to be pulling in revenue for Wardens, with Social Blade estimating the page pulling up to $19 a month and $222 a year from YouTube traffic. Strangely, those associated with Wardens have also faced abuse charges. News Now Patrick, aka PayPal Patty, have been arrested on at least one occasion for assaulting romantic partners. Floyd News Now Omaha Wallace has a felony conviction for making terroristic threats and currently is embarking on a life of tourism in Colombia and Brazil. Jack Texas Sheepdog Miller, another known supporter of Warden's, was arrested for possession of CP last year after police found CP on his computer while doing an unrelated search. It is unclear if Warden's will appeal Tuesday's decision. As it stands now, Warden's will not be available for release until at least the year 2042. Liberty Troll dominates GoFundMe for December. Craig Hendry's To Support Craig's Work campaign topped Thursday's GoFundMe take for the day as his urgent appeal to his fans that he needed $18,000 brought in a total of $980 in new donations. No other campaigns received donations for Thursday. Hendry's success has propelled him to the top of the GoFundMe rankings for January. But how well did his remarkable campaign do in December? December was a magnificent month for 3 of the funds that we follow, with the rest made up of drive-by donations and, well, single donations to Sean Paul Reyes' multiple fundraising efforts. In a worrisome trend, for the second month in a row, we didn't have a top 10, with only 7 of the funds that we follow receiving donations at all. With some funds getting great love from their fans because of the end-of-the-year holidays, we don't expect a repeat for this month. Rounding out the top 7 are 2 Long Island audit funds, which are tied for 6th place. Both his fund Legal Defense Against Unlawful Arrest and Support Freedom Stand Against Tyranny Together campaign brought in $10 for the month. In 5th place for the month, with 2 drive-by donations, again comes Long Island Audit and his Support the Fight Against Tyranny and Corruption campaign. Long Island Audit's campaigns had their worst month since we've been recording GoFundMe activity, as he did little to promote the campaigns for the month. 4th place went to the Angry Vets Boost Scars Mission for Veterans and Citizens campaign. It drew $105 from his fans and was marred in controversy. Between his near-nightly negative exposures on Christopher Direct D. Ruff's live streams and his own strange live streams and accusations that he staged phantom police encounters, it's a surprise that he made so much, let alone outdrew all of Long Island Audit's combined campaigns. 3rd place went to Craig Hendry's To Support Craig's Work campaign. Frankly, this one wasn't supposed to be on this list. The month before, he had put all his efforts into his Support Craig's Fight Against Injustice fund. However, everyone who promotes Hendry's plight promoted his old To Support Craig's Work instead of the new one, resulting in the old fund going 27% over its goal for the month with a $1,610 take. 2nd place went to our own ongoing expenses campaign, with a handful of generous donations for the holiday season that saw us hit the midway point of the ongoing campaign, and then surpass it by another 10%. While we'll probably up the goal later this year, since it's just a stand-in point for the ongoing expenses bit, it was tremendously touching to hit the mark at the holidays, and we're thankful to our fans for contributing. Finally, 1st place went to Long Island Audits. Liberty Troll with a huge win for the month at $2,370. His win was due to the efforts of Long Island Audits, and sadly, the laziest efforts of anyone in history to bring in such a haul for the month. Long Island Audits simply took an old Liberty Troll video, added a minute of new content for bumpers at the beginning and end of the video, and added a link to Liberty Troll's GoFundMe. The power of Long Island Audit's fanbase did the rest, blowing away the competition for the month. Simply put, there was no way Liberty Troll could have done this on his own, and it shows how Long Island Audits reclaimed his spot as king of all fundraisers from Jose Chili DeCastro in 2024.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed, and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Glenn Serio intrudes on grieving Seattle family. The streets of Seattle are no longer as safe as they once were as former king of all auditors, Glenn Serio, returned to police watching Thursday night into Friday morning as he went live from a crime scene in the city. Serio, breathing heavily and apparently having difficulty walking, came upon a scene where several men were standing with police as police were parked behind a car on the side of the road. A man was using a translation application on his phone to communicate with police about whatever was going on. That man finished with police and approached Serio, asking in broken English for Serio not to film. Serio corrected him that he was live streaming and not filming, and then attempted to get the man's story as the man said that his family did not want to be on camera. Serio blew the man off, then ignored the man again later when he came back with not one, but two attempts to use his translation software to explain what was going on and why the family was uncomfortable with Serio recording. He again dismissed the man and continued to record. As it turned out, the man was attempting to explain that a relative was found dead in a nearby car, and they were waiting for the coroner to come and retrieve the body. No one was being arrested, but the family was requesting privacy in a terrible time. Serio, being Serio, ignored the request and began to harass police officers at the scene. When the coroner's van arrived along with a female officer in a third squad car, Serio tried to walk into the street to get a better shot, and the police asked him to stay out of the street. The YouTuber verbally attacked both officers, demanding that they put up police tape and a sergeant so he could make a complaint about both men. When the female officer came over to put up crime scene tape, he berated her, insulting her appearance, and proclaimed that he would not have sex with her. Serio would continue to harass the female officer throughout the video, again, making it clear that he didn't find her sexually attractive and that she would not have a chance at sexually pleasuring him in the brief moments they were near each other at the crime scene. Again, turning his attention to the male officers, Serio brought back his sweep the leg challenge. He said that if the men came at him, they would learn that he was a trained fighter and that he would sweep their legs in record time and destroy both men. Serio also warned all the police that if he encountered them when they were out of uniform, he may challenge them again as they had no power when they were not wearing weapons or badges. We must note that Serio had his challenge accepted last year by Discord user Touche, who put up $1,000 to give to Serio if he successfully swept her leg. Despite a campaign to show that Touche was serious, Serio refused to acknowledge her challenge. Eventually, a sergeant came to the scene, and Serio claimed that both male officers had yelled at him with hands on their weapons, and he wanted their jobs. He explained that he had filed lawsuits against other police officers in federal court in the past and had winning records. He also claimed that all of the charges against him in the past had been dismissed, failing to account for the 5 days he spent in jail in 2022, and that if the police wanted, he would engage in mutual combat in a UFC ring at some point in the future. Eventually, the coroner finished retrieving the body, with police shielding the body from Serio's camera with a large blanket. The police wrapped up. Serio suggested that one of the officers should cross-dress to date the female officer, who he labeled a lesbian, before everyone wrapped up and Serio waddled back into the night. The new king of fundraising, Sean Paul Long Island Audits Reyes, started the new year with a new live stream Thursday afternoon as he recorded himself paying his fine in quarters for his conviction of trespassing at the Schenectady, New York, City Hall last year. Reyes was ordered to pay $370 in fines on October 15, 2024, when he was found guilty of the trespassing charges. As we've previously covered, Reyes went to the Schenectady City Hall on April Fool's Day of last year with the intention of getting arrested in order to show off the Attorney Shield product he endorses. We can say he intended on getting arrested as he already had a GoFundMe set up to handle costs from the arrest and had named the live stream after the fact that he was arrested before he even entered the building. Reyes wandered through the building and filmed what he needed to film before apparently deliberately running into a security guard and causing an altercation. He was arrested and briefly held, demonstrating how his Attorney Shield product prevented police from turning his phone off. Once released, he did another live stream/advertisement for the product from the parking lot, pledging that he'd fight the charges and file a lawsuit against the city to challenge the constitutionality of Mayor Gary McCarthy's executive order banning recording in the City Hall. In the lead-up to the trial, Reyes demanded that City Court Judge Tenica Frost recuse herself from handling the case because she was appointed to her post by McCarthy. Frost refused to do so, and despite Reyes declaring to his 864,000 subscribers that she was horribly biased against him, he decided to pay the fine pending appeal. On Thursday, he was paying the $370 fine in a mix of quarters and dimes. It's a stunt he's pulled before with fines, and his 4,000-plus live viewers marveled in how he stuck it to the man by using an old tactic to get views. There was some dispute as to where he could record within the Schenectady Police Department as it connects to the courthouse, and if the person at the customer service window could accept coins. Reyes would eventually have a standoff as to who would count the money before the clerk gave in and began a manual count of the coins. He then told his viewers that they used their constitutional protected rights to call and complain about how he was treated. After nearly 3 hours, he received a receipt for his payment, ending the threat that he would be thrown in jail for 15 days if he hadn't paid the fine by January 6, 2025.
DeCastro bores fans in first stream of New Year. Jose Chili DeCastro's first attempt to livestream in the new year went about as well as you'd expect it to, with DeCastro declaring martial law was coming with the incoming Trump administration and a promise, slightly kind of, that he'd be there to pick up the pieces when things went wrong for America. This time, he's apparently staying in the country to observe rather than run to another country to wait out the supposed coming war. He'll lead at another time, to be determined later. While America's top auditor Sean Paul Long Island Audit Reyes was doing really important things like paying a trespassing fine in coins, and Sweep the Leg Glenn Serio prepared for another night stalking the streets of Seattle for new police officers to harass, DeCastro sat in his cozy studio screaming about Donald Trump and the coming chaos, he says. That will be in store for the world now that the push to evict everyone here illegally will somehow mean 30,000 new law enforcement officers employed by ICE, $66 billion in new detention centers, and $9.00 a gallon of milk for Americans. He also warned that once all the illegal Americans are gone, the prison empire would turn its attention to regular Americans. With thousands of beds to fill and profit to be made, DeCastro urged his fans to do everything possible to stop the complex before America was lost. DeCastro also warned of giving phone numbers out to police officers, as your women could then be hit on by the officers for romantic affairs. Despite the case he cited coming from an incident where the officer called the number associated with a woman's license plate to ask her out. Running for mayorship, DeCastro then declared could be a stepping stone to changing things. He said that the legendary Dick Heller, fresh off his racist tirades on Twitter/X, told him that the National Mayors Association meeting would allow him to influence states in fighting the government and getting rid of such things as the Terry versus Ohio decision that is ruining the country. Announced that when he is governor, he'd listen to the mayors, before flashing back to the early 2000s when he was 26 years old, and his sister talked him out of joining the Navy to become a Navy SEAL. Despite being 3 inches too small for the unofficial 5 feet 6 inches minimum height to be a Navy SEAL. Claiming he was the first to end a line of military service in his family dating back to the founding of America, he said he wouldn't fight against someone who didn't attack us in order to protect oil interests. The rest of the 4.5-hour broadcast was filled with more anti-police sentiment, plus an interview with one of the men who was with good guy activism when he was arrested. There were no real updates to his constitutional law scholar game, other than it would be out eventually as he no longer has to keep the promise to be out by Christmas or the end of 2024.
Craig Hendry dominates crowd source market. It was another day of domination for Craig Hendry on Friday, as his string of victories continued with a $260 take to bring his monthly total to $1,340 in just the first 3 days of the month. Hendry's reign was propelled by his weekly address early in the week, with his message of being a political prisoner resonating with his audience. As one observer noted, Hendry as political prisoner is making much more money than he was just another auditor. While donations seem to be cooling late in the week, we expect continued victories for Henry's fund into the first days of the week, followed by a good deal of days of goose eggs until his next audio address from prison. Hendry is currently imprisoned after being found guilty of felony stalking and misdemeanor harassment charges in Vermilion County, Indiana. The YouTuber is facing 3 more sets of charges throughout the state of Indiana, with his next trial currently set for March for more felony charges out of Sullivan County. It's unclear if Hendry will make the $18,000 he needs to get the appeal on the docket by the time his current sentence is up, but at this rate, he'll have a clear shot at raising the money he needs if he can keep the donations coming in. While Hendry sat alone at the top of the GoFundMe charts on Friday, in distant second place came Liberty Troll without much reasoning for the donation, with $75 donations for the day. Liberty Troll was then closely followed by the Angry Vet, with a $25 donation on Friday. No other campaigns received donations for Friday.
Journalism is not free. Both ReallyCoolSite.org's daily newspaper and our daily newscasts are funded by your continuing donations and what we make from our YouTube AdSense revenue each month. If you'd like to contribute to help us keep the lights on, eating, keeping the cats fed and writing new stories to feature on both the newspaper and newscast each day, we do have a GoFundMe set up at the address on screen right now. If you can't afford to contribute, please watch the advertisements on our videos, like, share, subscribe, and comment. You can help by doing next to nothing, and we thank you in advance for pitching in.
Floyd Wallace arrives in Brazil. Hates it immediately. Sex tourist Floyd Wallace surprised his fans on Friday by revealing he had been in Manaus, Brazil, since the first of the year and was having a completely awful time as the city had changed since the last time he was there. Wallace complained that the vibe had changed in the city and that tactics he used in previous visits didn't work on women now. He said that they were too Americanized and that cold approaching only resulted in a handful of numbers, but no real success in callbacks. He immediately complained that he had not had a sexual conquest since being in the country. Wallace made it clear that was growing frustrated that cold approaching and other tactics that he's relied on in his previous conquests were not working in the city. With frustration apparent in his voice, he put up still images of women he met in past trips. He stopped to complain about a super chat that said he was exploiting underage girls. Wallace then immediately displayed images of himself cuddling and holding women whose ages appeared to be much younger than his own. The YouTuber then went into a tirade about Avianca Airlines. He said that when he went to board the plane for Brazil, the airline refused to board him since he didn't have a return trip booked to the United States. Wallace lashed out at the airline's requirement that he spend another $572 on a plane ticket to return to the United States before it would let him fly to Manaus. Still upset, he said that he immediately canceled the ticket upon landing in the country and needed to stay 7 to 10 days for his refund to be issued by the airline. When asked about his finances, Wallace admitted that after the flight to Brazil, the flight to the United States, and paying for his current Airbnb, he was down to $900 in his bank account. While he assured his fans that he'd get the $572 back and that he was fine, he complained that no one was contributing to his ongoing campaigns. Lamenting to Psychic Jackie, he wondered aloud if his time in the travel space was done and threatened to change his foreign only into his third First Amendment auditing-themed reaction channel. Then wondered aloud what country he should go to after Brazil. After stating several names of countries, he finally settled on Kenya after he returned to the United States and settled all of his legal stuff. Part of that legal stuff would apparently be doing time for his crimes in Oklahoma from 2023, where he is still currently scheduled to have a jury trial towards the end of the month for an obstructing an officer charge. Wallace promised that he would no longer provide live videos of dates as his side chat was awful and treated the women without respect before he ended the live stream. Good Guy activism streams to free David New York and NYC. The fallout from the arrest of the trio of Good Guy activism, I Am God New York and David New York NYC, continued on Friday as Leonard Leroy Truth Filipowski joined Good Guy activism to pay to have David New York released from jail. David New York had been in jail since a New Year's Eve confrontation with police that started when police approached Good Guy activism and asked him to identify, as he was carrying a bottle that was concealed by a paper bag. Under New York law, concealing an open bottle of alcohol in a paper bag is still against the law, and police have the right to examine the bag and ask for a person's ID. Good Guy Audits refused to ID himself and said that the officer was in violation of the law as he was also holding an open drink. The officer replied that he was holding a coffee, which Good Guy Audits then claimed he was also holding a coffee as things escalated quickly. As police began to put handcuffs on Good Guy Audits to detain him, Good Guy Audits began to struggle with the officers. Good Guy Audits, who now claims he was only holding a bottle of water, tried to hand off the concealed bottle to either I Am God New York or David New York before being stopped by police. The concealed bottle seemed hard and not in the shape of a typical bottle or water, and again, did not explain the need to conceal the bottle from police. He also did not explain why the struggle with police should be ignored, as it was escalated by I Am God New York and David New York with their actions towards officer. One of the two men, again, assumed to be David New York, inadvertently struck an officer while the two officers were attempting to cuff Good Guy activism. The second man was apparently taken into custody at the end of the video when he engaged with police who were moving him away from the scene. An Asian police officer can be seen in the man's face as he was ordered to move back and apparently was in the process of detaining the man when the camera went dark. Friday's live stream featured Good Guy Activism, who was released from jail on New Year's Day, speaking remotely to Filipowski, who was at a precinct arranging for the release of David New York from the Rikers Island Correctional Facility. The group eventually raised the $2,600 needed to release David New York, with an expected 3-hour delay between the bond being paid and the release of the auditor. David New York is expected to be in court on Monday, January 6, 2025, and Good Guy Activism will be in court on Tuesday, January 7, 2025.